Welcome to Conversations with HJM. I'm Lisa Harris-Jones.
And I'm Barry Glassman.
And today we have the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, Ben Barnes. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So you have a very big job. With all of the issues with the new administration on the federal level, how does that affect Maryland's budget?
Well, it's to be determined. I mean, I think we came into session last year facing billions of dollars of shortfall, structural deficit, something that had been coming on for maybe 3 or 4 years that had been masked by federal relief in COVID that gave us really a cash sort of surplus. But there's a difference between a cash surplus and a structural surplus, right? It's the difference between inheriting $20,000 from your uncle and getting a $20,000 raise. Essentially what Maryland did is we got a $20,000 inheritance from our uncle. And so we were able to put off sort of that structural imbalance, but it came to a head last year. And through a number of measures, including raising revenue and cutting over $1 billion from the budget, we were able to get that structural imbalance into balance. We left session with a structural surplus, which was pretty exciting given where we were before session. And I think we put us on a really good glide path for the next couple of years that our structural outlook is strong. I think that was reflected in Standard & Poor's and Fitch retaining our AAA bond rating. But we won't really know until we get to September and December when the Board of Revenue Estimates again meets and does another outlook for us. We are all concerned about what will happen with DOGE cuts at the federal level. Just this week, we saw USDA cuts, which is based in my district, actually in the 21st district in Beltsville. We're talking about 1,000, 2,000 jobs. It's going to be a really big hit regionally, but also for our state. And so the question is, how bad does these cuts from the Trump administration and really what he's doing nationally that'll impact everyone with tariffs, how is that going to hit our bottom line? It's to be determined, but for what Maryland can control, for what the legislature and the governor of this state can control, we've put ourselves on really strong footing.
And, I kind of think with this national, with inflation still hanging out there, interest rates, what we have done still puts us kind of in a little bit of jeopardy because the federal government is just making it difficult for revenue producers.
It's a huge unknown. Yeah. It's when you look at their actions, they're chaotic and haphazard. And that is worrisome if you're a budgetary sort of minded person, like I have to be as chair of the budget committee. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what their next sort of haphazard steps are going to be. And so you have to really caution against that and try to plan as best you can, but it's hard. I think we have done a good job, again, with getting some fiscal stability in the next few years here in Maryland, but this administration is liable to do anything at any time.
Transportation is very important here in Maryland and the funding of the roads, the bridges. What do you see happening this next year with respect to funding those projects?
Well, it's been a big priority, as you know, for the House and for the Speaker of the House. It's something we've talked about even into last year, where the House passed 2 years ago, $350 million transportation package, which we were able to get through. This year, the Senate President, the Governor, and the Speaker all came together to recognize, look, our business community has been clamoring for good roads, good transit, good bridges to get their goods to market, to get their professional staff to their jobs, to get people home timely. This is an important thing for every Marylander, transportation infrastructure. And so we did come together this year and do another $500 million of additional transportation funding. That's $850 million of new funding in the last 2 years. I think we've almost caught up from what we saw from the previous administration, who ignored this transportation problem and in fact cut revenues in transportation, exacerbating the problem. And so I do think for sort of repairing roads, bridges, and doing those sorts of things, this $850 million is going to sort of provide some stability. We still have a shortfall for major projects, okay? So things like the American Legion Bridge, connecting DC or Montgomery County and Virginia, things like the Red Line here in Baltimore, long term. We still need to look at some revenue as to how we can tackle major projects, but this $850 million I think is going to put us in good stead moving forward for regular everyday upkeep, roads, bridges, to make sure they're in state of good repair, as we call it.
I know one of the other areas of the budget, in addition to balancing it, is education.
Yeah.
And I know that's one of your top priorities. Just want to get your up-to-date thoughts kind of on the blueprint, where we're going into the next phase.
Thank you. As you know, the blueprint has been a love of mine since I became chair, but even before that, when I was chair of the Education Subcommittee on Appropriations, and even before that, when I was Speaker Jones's vice chair of education. And I know it's been a priority of her going back that long. We are starting to see fruit, bear fruit, the blueprint. Reading scores have been up in third grade. Good news. So I think we're only 4 years in. We're coming up on our 5th year. In November of the 5th year, so next November, we have a 5-year look-in as to how it's performing. An independent audit from an independent auditor to see sort of how the money's being spent, not just our own audits, but an independent separate auditor. I think what we're going to see at that point is that it's providing huge successes. And if we know something, we talk a lot as Democrats about tackling poverty and systemic poverty and long-term poverty. The number one thing you can do for that is a good, world-class public education system. That is something Maryland is doing with the Blueprint for Education. It is something that is unmatched with any state in this country. If you look at national education advocates, they look at Maryland and what we're doing here and point to the sustained sort of commitment to public education. I think is it's going to pay dividends for our economy, our state, our young people for generations to come. And we're committed to it. The Speaker of the House has been very clear. I've been clear. The entire House Democratic caucus has been clear. We are committed to fully funding the Blueprint, and so far so good.
Yeah. And another area where federal policy potentially threatens funding for certain early education programs and so forth.
Yeah, I know that.
If they move ahead with some of their plans.
And I don't want to get overly partisan here, but look, you saw a president who ran saying, I don't even know what Project 2025 is. I never heard of it. And then he comes in implementing Project 2025 on day one, and that included eliminating the Department of Education at the federal level. This is not something Americans and certainly Marylanders want. It will be hard if they come with really draconian cuts. It would be devastating to a lot of us who have worked so hard, on sort of building a world-class education system, just to see it crumbled by this administration. I talked to my chair of the Health and Government Operations Committee a lot, my district mate Jocelyn Pena-Melnick, and she has worked so hard for 20 years on building a world-class health system, just to see the federal government now come in and cut us off at the knees on Medicaid and SNAP and the like. So it is hard, but it's the world we live in. It's the charge we have as elected officials to deal with it, and we're going to do everything we can to protect not just education, but healthcare, transportation, all these programs that are needed. Mm-hmm.
Do you think we'll take a breather on Blueprint this year, this session, hopefully?
No, the Blueprint's funded through the session. I mean, I think
policy-wise, you think
I
you'll
don't
have to
see
make
any major
change?
Blueprint policy this year. I don't think that would be necessary.
Well, we appreciate the discussion. On a lighter note, I am very clear that the Ravens will be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Commanders.
Well, the Commanders will be there, so be ready for it.
Okay, so we'll see the Ravens and the Commanders.
That'd be good.
All right.
I have to say, in recent years, I've come to love a little more the Ravens because I have a 9-year-old who's a Ravens fan, and even more than my love for the Commanders, I want to see him happy. So
Good. Yeah.
That'd be a tough spot for me, Ravens Commanders.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you for joining us with Conversations with HJM.